Thank you, Danielle. It is time for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. Let's bring in Fox Sports. I call him a man of all seasons, really. Johnny Kane joins us. Johnny, thanks for joining us on the headliner. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you betcha, man. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, I want to go back to the beginnings of young Johnny Kane. I mean, you grew up in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how fans know much of your background, but you grew up in Ohio. Were you a Detroit fan growing up in Ohio, or were you more, geared towards Cleveland or Cincinnati or whomever?
Yeah, no, good question. Usually when first people hear that I'm from Ohio, the first thing they want to know is if I'm a Buckeyes fan. So we usually get off on one foot or the other. I'll just say that I went to Ohio University, although I always thought I was going to go to Ohio State. That being said, I did grow up a Detroit sports fan. I grew up on, I had a Joe Dumars poster on my wall, Isaiah Thomas, listened to Harwell when I was out, cruising around in the small towns of Ohio. It's a very small town. It's actually a village of Delta. So it's like 2,500 people when I was there, and it's 100 miles from where I live now in Royal Oak back home. So Detroit was our biggest city beyond Toledo. So I did grow up a Detroit sports fan.
Were you a rebel in your house? I mean, did you become a Michigan fan with your brother and your dad being
No.
Buckeyes?
No, sorry. I mean, I can't go there. But
do you ever mention Michigan? Can you mention Michigan in your house?
Yeah. No, I will say this. My great uncle, I have a picture on my wall in the other room. He was an All-American at Michigan. And so Bob Chappius. And this was, eons ago. But anyhow, we always loved, we respect the school. I love being on campus in Ann Arbor. I just don't root for the football team. That's it.
Wait a second. Bob Chappius is your uncle?
Great uncle. Yep.
He's one of the greatest football players in Michigan history, and he's a war hero. I mean, this guy, he is next to Tom Harmon, he's one of the greatest Wolverines ever.
Thank you for saying that. Honestly, in fact, the photograph that I have is it's an action shot, black and white, but it has his years, and there was the time off during the war. So he had 2 stints at Michigan, obviously, with the war interrupting it. So I'm glad you said that. I actually told Coach Harbaugh about that when I first had a chance to meet him, and he was up to speed on the history as well.
Because, your uncle's teams were in my dad's wheelhouse, and so my dad loved Bob Chappius. I've heard about Bob Chappius my whole life. I mean, really. So that's interesting. Hey, man, that's cool. That's really, really cool.
Man. I want to look into that because if that's part of the lore, I'll have to get a hold of my mom a little bit later today and see if that rings true.
Yeah, there's some sort of story that he was captured, and when he was released, because they, obviously confiscate all their stuff, that sure. That the only thing he wanted was his, I don't know, because usually when you're a senior you get your M ring, but it was some sort of artifact from the University of Michigan that's the only thing he wanted. So
I love that. I love it. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to believe it until I hear otherwise.
Well, you know what? I'll double check on that next time I see you or something. I'll let you know. Okay, let's get in. Let's get into you're a great reporter. But I call you like a man for all seasons, because not only do you ask the tough questions and you're there in the pre and post games and hosting shows, but you have this other side to you that is kind of a human interest feature type of reporter, which I think everybody that does the hardcore nuts and bolts likes to do. But, you go to NASA. I mean, how does that happen? You screw around with the mascots all the time. God only knows how much food you've eaten over the years. I mean, can you talk about that genesis of your career? I mean, you're going to NASA. I mean, did you get sick? Did they put you in some sort of high-speed motion thing, or?
I was in some stuff. I was in some astronaut training stuff, but I think they scaled it back when they knew I was coming. Once they took a look at me, I'll say this: I give a ton of credit to our producers, because it's not as if we're reinventing the wheel. There are great reporters in every market where when you have that type of access, sometimes, and especially being a team partner like we are, we're able to do some things that maybe not everybody would get the opportunity to do. So like with the NASA stuff, that was, producer had reached out. He said, "Hey, what do you think about doing this when we go to Houston?" I said, "Absolutely." And then, the food thing, kind of took on a life of its own. We scaled that back a little bit. But my whole thing is, it's like, you know how you're not going to appeal to everybody? Sort of like if you get into politics as well. If you do radio, if you do television, if you're a writer, you'll never be able to appeal to everybody, but you just have to be true to who you are. We try to showcase everything that's available to a fan that would want to come, right? So rather than just like you said, we can all do the games, and there's plenty of them. Not this season, but there are plenty of games where you can just come in and do the regular stories. But when you have an opportunity to do some of the ancillary stuff, to me, it's showcasing everybody what exists. And then if we can bring a smile to some people's face, that's good. There are some people that think some of the stuff we do is hokey, and that's fine too, you know, but it's just, we try to have a little bit of fun with it and think outside the box, I guess.
Well, you know, going to NASA, another thing that I like, because there was a point, I know you said you scaled back on it, where God only knows what you were going to put in your mouth. And I mean that in a good way. Every time I turned around, you were eating something. I mean, what was, yeah. I mean, how much weight first did you put on, or did you have to constantly work out? And what was the most delicious thing out of all these morsels that you experienced that you've eaten over the years?
No, it's a great question, because I actually did put on weight. Now, some people, you know, everybody's different. So we all have our own body types. But I can tell you, from the time I moved to Detroit, and I'm not saying it was all related to ballpark food, some of it. But when I moved to Detroit, I put on at least 30 pounds since then, right? So I would say, I mean, again, baseball is different from, say, I do a lot with the Pistons in the NBA as well. And I used to do a little bit with the Wings and a little bit with the Lions, but not saying they don't have unique foods at those places, but with baseball, it almost seems as every team or every stadium has, right, some type of signature, outlandish, right? That's just kind of a baseball thing. That's a ballpark thing. So that was what we had tried to do. It was, you know, define, you know, what's unique here. Like when we were in Arlington, I guess, to play the Rangers, they had that boomstick, which is, you know, a hot dog that was 3 feet long and it weighed, you know, however many pounds, and it's filled with cheese and chili and peppers and all that. You know, that thing, it really was. It was big around as a broomstick. I had to have 2 other fans that helped me try to attack it, you know. But I remember one time we were in Baltimore, and I think I tried, it wasn't that unique of a dish, but it was like something like a crab stuffed hot dog. But, you know, it was 1,000 degrees, and let's just say it didn't settle well. You know what I mean? It just didn't settle well.
You know, you and I are on the same wavelength today, Johnny, because maybe it has a lot to do with Bob Champions. But the thing that I was thinking, you're eating pretty heavy food. Let's be honest here. I mean, this is definitely stuff that is delicious, probably pretty tough to go down at times. And you're in a ballpark, and it's like 1,000 degrees. I mean, have you ever gotten sick?
I haven't gotten sick, but there are times when I knew not to finish the dish. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah, man. I do.
If you're in the 3rd inning and you know you've got 6 more innings plus post-game interviews to do, sometimes you just know when to tap out, you know?
Well, you know, you do a great job. And I do obviously want to get into sports a little bit, but the Tigers have started off really, really well. Your early impressions of this club?
Here's the thing. Somebody asked me the other day, somebody was walking past my place, and I was out working in my garage, and somebody said, "Are the Tigers really that bad?" And this is after they lost the first game to Kansas City earlier this week. And I said, well, no, you know, and then of course they won last night. I mean, they're above 500 here. I said, no, they're not that bad. I said, you know, they had an off night. The thing about this whole deal is my impressions are favorable in that a lot of fans are clamoring to see the young players. Totally justified. That's what fans want. Now, there are some other young players they would like to see rushed up and through, you know, and that's, you know, again, that's just the way that it goes. But when it's a 60-game sprint, you know, the objective always has been and always will be win 2 out of 3, right? Win the series. And they've done that once. They have a great opportunity to do it again this week against Kansas City. You know, and then you turn your sights on St. Louis and Cincy again. Like, you just have to be pretty good for pretty long. And the way that the playoff structure is now, you could be in it. And then it's all bets are off. So, Look, I don't know if anybody was targeting this as a World Series year, before the pandemic, and maybe not necessarily once the pandemic started, but we're seeing some of these young kids make their debut. There's no substitute for experience. If the pressure really is off, and what I mean by that is if you aren't expected to win, if ownership, let's say, says, hey, we understand we're a young nucleus, we're building towards something. If your expectations aren't, hey, we have to win every night, and we're paying you gobs of money, go out there and win every night, you can go out and just play. And that's what I think we're seeing is guys that are going out and playing, competing hard. Gardy has a way with kids, you know what I mean, how to keep a clubhouse light. And look, you got to have good pitching like you do any season. And it seems to be that they have that. And once they stretch out Fulmer and you get Norris healthy and all that other stuff, and you got Boyd at the top. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I covered the team, but they really could be in it. They could be there. They could be there at the end. Now, can we make great judgment after 5 games? Not necessarily, but that's all we have to evaluate. And through 5 games, I would say we've won more than we've lost. That's a good start.
60-game schedule, anything can happen. And I really think that if there's going to be a year where a team comes out of nowhere and surprises anybody, or if, quote unquote, the best team doesn't win the championship, why not?
Sure.
My battle cry is why not the Tigers?
Why not? Exactly. Why not? Honestly, there are a lot of people that were talking about how good Cincinnati is. And again, it's one series and we'll see them, plenty more. But, Cincinnati has some pop in its lineup that we didn't necessarily see recently. And now the Tigers do. The experiment last year just didn't work due to injuries with having Josh Harrison. We never really got to see what he was capable of doing.
Right.
But now you're talking with Jonathan Scope and CJ Cron. Hello. Like I've watched those guys in the in the last couple of years, and people are seeing now what CJ can do. And obviously Jonathan hit his first homer yesterday. It's like you have legit power hitters. Jacoby Jones is a young kid, man. Jacoby's now showing that, and we'll see, but it looks like he's looks much more disciplined at the plate. Jacoby's showing some power. Kristen Stewart looks much more reserved at the plate. I mean, you have some power, and to your point, that's the way baseball has been trending. And so we didn't have power numbers last year. Now, like you said, if the ball can leave the ballpark, okay, strikeout numbers are high. Some people may not like this brand of baseball where it's, it's high risk, high reward. But look, if the Tigers show that they can hit home runs and you can do that, up and down the lineup, or at least 1 through 6, 1 through 7, then yeah, we're not out of any game. No question.
Tigers have some pieces. They're not the same team that lost 114 games last year.
No question. And I think, and we talked about Matthew Boyd being at the top of it there. He gave up some home runs last year. We know that. But Boyd, he's going to be prepared when he comes to work every day. He's going to put the work in. Same with Dino and Buck. You mentioned, hey, Joe Jimenez has 3 saves already. You got to remember this kid's 25 years old. So, everybody's talking about some of these young guys we want to see. Obviously, Casey being, at the top of the list. But we saw Kyle Funkhauser make his debut. Bo Burrows, these kids are going to be good. Brian Garcia or Ronnie Garcia looks good. You're right. You're right, man. Again, we can be optimistic. That's what we should be following this club. And maybe other teams around baseball are saying similar things, but they do seem to have enough, arms in the stable to be competitive early on. Again, can they stay healthy? I'm not talking COVID-related health. I'm just saying, can they stay healthy, right, with respect to arm issues and whatnot? If they can, then absolutely. I think this is a vastly different team than what we saw last year.
I'll tell you what, Johnny, if the Tigers do make some noise this year, hopefully you and I will get rings because I think we've really pumped them up. So I think if they're listening right now, they got a couple of believers, my hands are empty right now. Come on, Tigers, come through.
Let's do it, man. I'm in.
It sounds great. Johnny, we could go on. We'll have to have you back. Any nephew of Bob Chappius is a friend of mine, so I certainly appreciate. No, I'm telling you, not only a great football player for the U of M, but also a great human being. So, obviously that's a great legacy to have. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very, very much, and look forward to seeing you. With everything you do at Fox, as I said, you're a man for all seasons. You're a true Renaissance man. Best of luck, Johnny. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Let's talk soon.
All right. There you have it, Daniela. It is the one and only Johnny Kane on the headliner, presented by Miller Lite. Miller Lite, the original light beer. It tastes great, only 96 calories, and it's available for delivery.